It's roughly 170,000 years ago. You're a human, barely recognizable as one, but sure, let's go with that. You wake up, look around at the African savanna, cold ground, empty stomach, and at absolutely no point, not for a single second, does it occur to you that what this situation is missing is a pant. Fast forward to today. The state will arrest you if you don't have one. Somewhere between then and now, something happened. And the answer, I genuinely cannot stress this enough, involves lice. But before the lice, the naked ape problem. Stop and think about this zoologically for 1 second. Gorillas covered in fur. Chimpanzees covered. Bears, wolves, lions, elephants, hippos, all of them, across wildly different climates and environments, walking around in permanent full coats. And then there's us, standing in the middle of all that biodiversity. Smooth, patchy, wearing an evolutionary look that says, I used to have fur, but I made some decisions. Why are we like this? The leading theory is running. As our ancestors moved from forests onto open grassland and started hunting over long distances, thick fur became a death sentence. You overheat, you slow down, you collapse before catching the animal you need to survive. And dying hungry, from evolution's perspective, is the single worst outcome possible. So over hundreds of thousands of years, we traded fur for something evolution apparently considered an upgrade. Sweat glands, 2 to 4 million. Humans are, without any exaggeration whatsoever, the greatest sweating machines on Earth. If sweating were an Olympic sport, we would win every gold medal in every category and it wouldn't be remotely close. Other species would stop showing up. We are professionally world-class, elite-grade moisture producers. Spectacular in summer. Considerably less spectacular when it's minus 40 and you're standing on an ice age step with nothing between you and the wind but your own optimism. That's where clothes come in. Except here's where the obvious story falls apart. The conventional version goes, humans leave Africa, hit cold weather, wrap themselves in animal skins. Problem solved. Clean, simple, logical. A 5-year-old could piece it together. Except genetic evidence places the origin of clothing somewhere between 100,000 and 170,000 years ago. And modern humans didn't migrate out of Africa in meaningful numbers until around 70,000 years ago. So why were we getting dressed tens of thousands of years before we went anywhere cold? Now, the lice. Human lice exist in 2 genetically distinct populations. Head lice live in hair. Body lice live in clothing, in the seams, in the folds, in the fabric itself. Here is the critical biological fact. Body lice cannot survive on bare human skin. They need fabric. They need clothing to exist as a species. So the exact moment body lice genetically split from head lice is the exact moment humans started wearing clothes consistently enough to create a brand new home for a parasite. When researchers mapped that genetic split, it happened between 83,000 and 170,000 years ago. A creature that causes mass panic in elementary schools and has destroyed more camping trips than bad weather accidentally preserved the oldest evidence of human clothing. The lice were there before the history books. They adapted. They moved in. They know exactly when we got dressed. And they knew before we did. That is either beautiful or deeply horrifying. Probably both. Definitely both. So if cold weather wasn't the original reason, what was? First answer, basic physical protection. Not from cold. From sun, thorns, insects, and rough terrain. A simple hide wrap creates a barrier between skin and everything trying to scratch, bite, or burn it. Unglamorous, almost certainly correct. Second answer, and this is where it gets genuinely strange, identity. Our ancestors were using red ochre pigment to paint their bodies as far back as 200,000 years ago. Before the lice evidence, before clothing. We were decorating ourselves before we were dressing ourselves, communicating something visually about who we were to the people standing around the same fire. The jump from painting your skin to wearing a specific hide in a specific way is not a large cognitive leap. And once the hide is on, you start wondering, which hide? Did I kill this animal myself? Does wearing it say something about who I am to the people watching? That is the birth of fashion. Approximately 150,000 years before anyone used that word unironically. Then the climate tried to finish us off. Between 120,000 and 70,000 years ago, Earth went through a series of catastrophic glacial cycles. Temperatures collapsed, ice expanded, food disappeared. The entire human population may have crashed to somewhere between 10,000 and 30,000 individuals. we nearly went extinct. Not almost kind of close, actually genuinely terrifyingly close to simply not existing as a species before we had properly gotten started. For the survivors who pushed north into Europe and Central Asia, clothing stopped being about comfort or identity. It became the single line between alive and dead.
The oldest confirmed needle with a proper eye, small enough to thread sinew, precise enough to stitch fitted seams, was found in Denisova Cave in Siberia, 50,000 years old, made from a hollow bird bone, shaped and polished to a fineness that is extraordinary, even by modern standards. Someone looked at a sliver of bone and imagined a tool that didn't yet exist, carved it, bored a clean hole through the narrow end without splitting it, threaded it, and stitched material that sealed warmth against a human body through the depths of a glacial winter. That is not instinct. That is not luck. That is engineering. That is design thinking. And that needle, that one small object found in a cave in Siberia, is part of the direct chain of events that produced every single person alive on Earth today. So, why did ancient humans start wearing clothes? Protection first. Identity almost immediately after. Survival technology when the world turned against them.
And what began as a rough animal hide draped over one shoulder in Africa eventually became linen, wool, silk, entire economies, empires, and trade routes built entirely on fabric. The textile industry, long before machines made it mechanical, was one of the most powerful economic forces in the ancient world. Whatever you're wearing right now, you made choices. Conscious ones, unconscious ones you didn't even realize you were making. And those choices communicate something about who you are, what group you belong to, what you want the world to understand about you before you've said a single word. You are doing exactly what that person on the African savannah was doing 150,000 years ago. Wrapped in animal hide, figuring out how to tell the people around the same fire something about who they were. Same impulse, different fabric, separated by 150,000 years of history, and yet, somehow, after all of that, we still wake up every morning, stare into a wardrobe full of options, and feel like we have genuinely nothing to wear. Some things never change. Drop a comment. Would you actually go back and live without clothes? And if this made you think differently about what's on your back right now, the next video will do exactly the same thing all over again.